Hey friends, it's Steven with Leviathan Snakes, and for this week's video we are going to be covering a marketing topic. So it does relate to ball pythons, it does relate to reptile businesses, but it's going to be really business focused. So we hope you guys enjoy the video. If you do, please like, subscribe, and comment, and let's get to it. So I've talked about in different videos the consumer marketing funnel, which deals with bringing awareness to a brand, engaging consumers with that brand, getting them to consider your products, getting them to buy from you, and ultimately become advocates for your brand. But one thing that I feel like kind of gets glossed over, because it always talks about like make engaging content and build really, really high quality videos, all of this stuff, is like, how do you do that? So I want to talk about a model, again, kind of marketing models, what we're going to be talking about for this video, that HubSpot kind of pioneered, which is the inbound marketing flywheel. And what this says is it's pretty simple if you kind of like understand the gist of it, then we can apply it to ball pythons. And that is that no matter what happens, there is a wheel that is constantly turning every single time a consumer interacts with a business. It doesn't matter if it's an ad, it doesn't matter if it's a sale, it doesn't matter if it's a support email, anything like this, okay? So there is this constant wheel that turns and there are stages in it, or hopefully there are 3 different stages that you can get the consumer to go through. And the first stage is attraction. You have to attract your consumer's interest for whatever. We're gonna jump into this in more detail in a little bit. The second stage is engagement. So very similar to the consumer marketing funnel, you want your consumer to interact with whatever it is that you're trying to show them, trying to get them to interact with. Again, we'll deal with this in more depth in a little bit. And then the last one is delight. So no matter what it is, you want the consumer to leave feeling good about themselves, about the interaction, all of these different things. And if you can do this, every single time that you do this, you are increasing the brand value that your brand has for that consumer. So this isn't something like, for example, consumer marketing funnel. You want to kind of do a shotgun approach, and you want to get as many different people interested in your brand or see your brand as possible, and then slowly you kind of like start at the top and you kind of come lower and lower and lower and lower until you make a sale. In this specific model, you want to target the exact same consumer and you want to interact with them over and over and over again, because it's that continued interaction, the continued cycle of attraction, engagement, and delight that is going to make them end up converting with you. And when they do convert and become a customer of yours, they're not just going to be a transactional customer where they buy one thing and then they're done. They're very likely, if they've gone through that cycle multiple times and had really, really good experiences, going to be incredibly loyal to your brand, and it will be much easier to turn them into an advocate for your brand later on. The very first part of the inbound flywheel is attraction, is that you have to get an audience, whoever it is, if it's one person, if it's 100 people, if it's 100,000 people, you have to find a way to attract their interest and bring them to whatever piece of content that you're trying to get them to engage with and interact with and all of this stuff. So let's talk about like what attracts people to specific pieces of content. One thing that I think is super, super important is understanding who your target market is and then making content that appeals to them. So a pet owner is going to be more interested in care guide videos and maybe like which reptile is the best for a beginner than a person who's been breeding snakes for 10 years. They're completely different types of content and they're completely different markets. But if you are making content that's going to appeal to new pet owners, you probably are going to do really well selling maybe blue-eyed Lucies to those new pet owners. But if you're trying to sell, let's say, a visual sunset to a person who's been breeding ball pythons for 10 years, if all of your content is focused on what is the best snake for a new ball python owner or keeper or anything like that, that content probably isn't going to appeal to the reptile breeder who's interested in sunset. So they'll never click on your videos and never click on your content, and you're not going to really resonate with them enough times in order for them to have the brand value of buying a sunset from you. So I think that tailoring your content to your audience is really, really important in order to attract that audience to you. So again, kind of jumping back, just rehashing it a little bit. Pet owners, I feel like it should be things like care guides. It should be general information on animals, maybe pros and cons of different types of animals. All of these different things I think are really, really interesting to new keepers, but they may not appeal to other potential markets. I think if you are looking at newer breeders or kind of entry-level breeders as your primary market, things that this market is going to be interested in is going to be like how to breed, like incubation videos, maybe building racks, rat breeding, things like this. These are topics that they are interested in that may attract them to your platforms in order for them to engage with your content and move further along in the flywheel. And then if you're going towards more investment level breeders, people who are doing this as a legitimate business, whether it's been for a long period of time or they're just investing large amounts of money, I personally think that business content appeals to them more, and just because it's obvious and all that, I think that this video right here is a prime example of that. People who are interested in learning how to market their ball python business are often way more serious about treating their hobby as a business, and therefore are much more likely to buy a sunset because they're willing to risk investing $5,000 in a single animal because they understand how the ball python business world works, and it's kind of necessary if you want to be have a successful, tangible shot at making it a full-time living. You have to be working with those higher end projects. So I think that if you are trying to attract the audience, whichever one of these audiences, and just decide whichever audience you think that your ball python business is best suited for, I think you need to know what topics you want to cover in your content. So pet owners are care guides, newer breeders is how to breed, and then higher end / more business type breeders is going to be business type content. Things that aren't just easily seen about the animals, but it's more about business know-how, taxes, things like that. Less exciting, but still cool. That's actually the stuff that I like talking about the most. So the second part of the flywheel is engagement. So with engagement, when you're talking about social media marketing, engagement is a term for how many people hit the like button, how many people comment, how many people share, all of these different things. But when I'm talking about engagement in the HubSpot flywheel, I'm talking about somebody who is sitting down and for whatever it is, an extended period of time, they are actually engaging with the content. If this is a video, they are actively watching it. It doesn't mean they have to watch it with their eyes, but they are listening to it. They are getting the content that is being delivered and consuming it and analyzing it and thinking about it multiple different times. And it doesn't have to be the exact same video, but it can be multiple different videos. This is the engagement part, whether they like or they comment or share or anything like that. It is really about getting that mind share of the audience. And the more mind share in an audience member that you can get, the more invested they are in your brand. But just simply getting them to watch a video does not necessarily mean that you are going to fulfill the third step, which is delighting them. So let's talk about ways that you can make engaging content that may or may not ultimately delight the audience. So I think there's 5 different overarching kind of themes when it comes to engaging content, and I may forget them. So we'll see. I might have to get my notes and talk about them later in a different video or something like that. But I'll do my best right now because I'm kind of on a roll, I feel like. So the very first one, which is the one that we do the most and I like it the most, is education. If people can see a piece of content, whether it's a video, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a blog, and they feel that they have learned something, especially if they have felt that they've learned something that they can apply right now, they are going to find that valuable and it's going to be engaging. There's some difficulties when it comes to the education piece because often you're only able to teach somebody the one topic one time. So if you are making content that has 1,000 other videos that cover the exact same topic, you might not really be teaching anybody anything new, even if your content is awesome. So you kind of have to find what is the areas that you can hit that other people can't hit on very well, and then be able to deliver that content in easily digestible ways. So that's one, is education is one way to make high quality content. Another way, which I think is often seen on social media, is entertainment. So entertaining content, again, you don't have to do only one of these. You can apply all of these different concepts to all of the different types. kind of combine them all together into one and make one super awesome freaking video or podcast or anything like that. But entertainment. So people like things that keep them entertained, whether it is through humor or maybe, I think that this happens quite a bit on social media, is through conflict. So if you're able to keep somebody from being bored, that is valuable to them, and it's going to keep them engaged, and it's going to keep them actively consuming your content. I personally warn people away from using conflict as a main way of entertaining people. I think what ends up happening is it gets people in situations where they are looking for drama, and that can taint or tarnish a brand, especially when you're trying to work in a situation with animals where somebody might view you as entertaining, but they might also think that you are rude or kind of difficult to deal with, and they might not want to do a business relationship with you, even if they think you're entertaining. So, the third one that I think is, it is quite a bit in the ball python reptile hobby. We see it quite a bit, but it's kind of hard to do, at least easily, is something that's exceptional. So, in the ball python hobby, the exceptional things, the breeding part of the hobby, are the seeing animals that we know were incredibly hard to hit, and they took years and years and years of planning and luck before that animal could have been produced. And I think that you see this with like Canova unveiling whatever multi-recessive project, the Desert Ghost Exanthic Clown. We know how long it takes to make a triple recessive, and the fact that that triple recessive looks absolutely incredible is why that piece of content is exceptional. And because it's exceptional, it makes people remember it. It captures that mind share because they know how amazing that was, because it's the only one they'd ever seen. So I think that when it comes to the reptile hobby, being exceptional is kind of just something that happens. You either invest a whole bunch of money, you've been doing it a really long time, or you get really, really lucky. But the exceptionality is a way to have engaging content that people will remember. Now, I don't remember how much I've done so far. We did education, we did entertainment, we did exceptional. I don't remember the other two. Actually, I'll say it like this. You'll see why I'm kind of hesitating on it in a second. But arousal is a way to have engaging content. And it's kind of difficult for me because I have a radio face. But if somebody else was way more attractive than I am, you can use arousal as a way to make engaging content. And you can capture people's interest by eliciting feelings of arousal in your audience. And I don't really have to talk about this a whole lot because we hear about it all the time. So I'm just going to kind of move on. And I know that there is a fifth one, but I can't remember it off of the top of my head right now. If I do remember it, I will talk about it. I'll put it in the video at some point, hopefully, if I remember it. But all of these different things help you engage your audience, that way they consume your content. But that doesn't mean that just because they're consuming your content that they are going to be delighted by it. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how do you delight your audience. So the model that I'm going to talk about in a second, I don't even know if it has a name, but I've heard about it in like various different like marketing books and things like this. But the idea is that you want to delight your audience by creating an emotional reaction in your audience. And it doesn't really matter. Oh, that's also the fifth one. I just remembered the fifth one. It was inspiration. If you can inspire people to act and do something and feel good about themselves, that will get them engaged. So inspirational content is the fifth one. I apologize, so I'm getting off topic. But so to delighting, you want to elicit an emotional reaction in your audience, whether that is an epiphany moment because they learned something, whether it is laughter because they laughed and they thought it was funny, and I know that was a little redundant right there, or anger because it was something that charged their emotions and was kind of controversial. If you can elicit an emotion in your audience, it is very likely that they will be delighted by it in terms of the HubSpot inbound flywheel. But I don't think that all emotions are created equal. Just because you can elicit an emotion doesn't mean that it's the right emotion to attach to your brand. And this is one of the reasons why I steer away from like the conflict, controversial based content most of the time, is because if you are constantly using conflict as the emotion that you're delighting people with, people view you as a polarizing, conflict-based personality, and it's probably going to damage a commercial endeavor. So instead, I think that going off of other things would be more beneficial. So if you can provide value through education, if you can inspire people and show them that what they are doing is in the right direction and that it is going to work out, I think that these are super, super valuable things to a business if you are going to be marketing yourself to anybody. It doesn't even have to be ball pythons. But I think that at this point, if you can get that emotional response, it kind of gets hard on how exactly do you elicit the emotional response, but the types of content I think help out here. You're going to do well. The content may not get 10 million views or anything like that, but if you can consistently do it over and over and over again, every single time that that one individual interacts with your content and they go through the whole HubSpot inbound flywheel, it's going to make them feel good about you. And I think that this is what the key of the inbound flywheel is doing, is it's building up that long-term customer loyalty without necessarily having somebody buy something from you. So before we end this video, I want to talk about one kind of technique. I think I'd started talking about it, but I rambled and got distracted earlier. And that is how you can elicit emotions in an audience member. And this deals with creating, when you very first start, whatever, let's say it's a video, let's say it's a reel. When you very first start, what you want to do is you want to attract the interest of your target audience. So like we'll say that it is this shop. We do a lot of our reels here, so that way you can kind of see the snake enclosures, you kind of know what it is, especially people who are already part of the hobby. So it immediately creates a situation where there's probably going to be a snake that's being shown. So if you show the snake right away, what it's doing is you are showing that there is a snake, but there's not really a promise that's being made. You might potentially attract their attention, but if you actually wait a little bit, if instead of showing the snake, you just show the setting, the background in this situation, and then you show the snake, or maybe you show the snake coming into focus, that is going to capture people's attention better than just showing the snake right away, crystal clear in focus. Because what's going to end up happening is people want to see, oh, what am I looking at? And if, when the snake comes in focus, if the snake is beautiful, or if as a breeder you know that it was really, really rare or really, really hard to hit, that alone might be able to entertain them and get them through the flywheel with a delighted kind of interaction. But that's really quick, and there's lots of different things that kind of go with this. I personally think that you can apply the inbound flywheel to any interaction. It could be something like somebody responds to your ad on Morph Market and you are formulating an email to respond back to them. Having a way, like leading it with something that catches their interest, interacting with them, giving them some kind of value inside the body of it, and then closing it with something that would delight them. I think all of these are perfect frameworks that can make your brand stand out and kind of add to that customer service that everybody wants to say that they offer. But when it really comes down to it, what are most ball python breeders doing that's different? Because mostly everybody takes amazing care of their animals. Mostly everybody provides amazing customer service. So how are you going to stand out? Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, and I apologize again for rambling so much. We'll see you next week.